Oh boy, this is going to be a tough one to review. The Menu is something of a thriller starring Ralph Fiennes, Anya Taylor-Joy, and Nicholas Hoult. So I knew very little about this movie walking in. All I knew was that it seemed to involve a restaurant where Ralph Fiennes is this villainous chef, Anya Taylor-Joy is the main character regarding the guests. But most of all, I knew it was something of a thriller. But what kind of thriller? Is it a whodunit? Is it a gore fest? Is it a sci-fi thriller? A horror thriller? Well, it's actually none of those things, because after seeing it, I still don't know. The Menu is the most bewildering movie I have seen in a while, and the most tonally confused since Jordan Peele's Nope. Throughout my viewing of it, I just sat there, just gobsmacked, as I was completely baffled with what kind of movie I am watching. I suppose it's a suspense thriller that, at its core, is a dark comedy and a social satire. Yeah, I guess we have a problem here. If my interpretation of what this movie is correct, then there's not much to it. It's not very suspenseful, the comedy's not very funny, and I'm not exactly sure what it's satirizing. Let's unpack these attributes one by one. There is a lack of suspense because all of the guests are shallow, unlikable, and boring. The dialogue is filled with such sarcasm and often has a jokey feel to it. And the chef's demented handling is so delusional and so over the top with his mania, it's difficult to follow the logic of his deranged nihilism. I never had a concrete understanding of what the chef's agenda is, nor what his motivation is behind the madness. Much of his dialogue consists of nonsensical sociopathic ramblings, but never seem to amount to a clear main idea. The dialogue is, sometimes, cornball and much of the time brings little to no depth to the characters. Regarding the characters, which are the overwhelming majority of the guests, have barely any personality and you never get to know any of them. They're all one-dimensional and I never truly cared who lives or who dies. As for the comedy, there were a couple times I laughed, but much of the humor seemed to be very restrained as if the filmmakers were uncomfortable and anxious to fully embrace the dark humor. If there ever was a thriller that might have benefited with cloaking itself in the comedy, this may have been it. Much of the humor seemed awkward as it wanted to exist in the film and lighten things up, yet the humor wanted to be subtle enough not to distract from the suspense. It seems that the Menu wants to have it both ways, to be taken seriously, but not too seriously. But what you end up with is a jumbled mess where the drama is killing the comedy, and the comedy is killing the drama. And it can be done! Some of the greatest films of all time are dramedies, a hybrid of comedy and drama. But the ones that work know when it's the right time to be funny and when it's the right time to be serious. With The Menu, it's trying to be multiple contradictory genres at the same time and it just falls apart. Lastly, regarding the satirical attribute, I feel that the film has something to say, but is unsure how to say it. The main theme of the film, I suppose, is the downside of being an elitist pseudo-intellectual snob. But the message seems not to be clearly communicated. It's possible that there is a fairly deep movie in here somewhere, but I just don't see it with the finished product. The Menu isn't an awful film. Exactly. Ralph Fiennes gives a solid performance as the crazed chef, and the film is thoroughly unpredictable and has a decent premise. It just doesn't amount to anything impactful. It's a film that comes across being deeply uncertain of what it wants to be, and as a result, I can't make much sense of it myself. I give The Menu 1.5 out of 4 stars.